Okay, so we're moving on to lesson 11, and we've dealt with adding decimals and learning to them up by their place values and their decimal points. Now we're moving on to subtracting decimals. So it's the same idea. We've got to set up the problem correctly first, and then we can use all the subtracting methods that we've done before. So it's all kind of like the same idea. So as a warm up, because maybe we haven't done much subtraction in the last few days. Let's do this one right here. So this deals with whole numbers. It's a whole number if it doesn't have a fraction attached to it or a dot and the decimal point and any decimals to the right of it. So these are whole numbers. And we'll talk about whole numbers a little bit later on in class or later on as far as what to do when you've got an adding or subtracting decimals problem with a whole number. So for this, let's just set it up. Now, your first number if you've got your subtraction problem horizontally like this, the first number has to go on top. So 457, because that's 457 take away or minus 324. So that has to look like this vertically. So again, there's our vertical, there's our horizontal. And then we do it again by place values. So we do our ones, we do our tens, and we do our hundreds to give us an answer of 133. So there's no borrowing in this one, and I think we'll try to not do too much of that right away, just so we get the general idea for our subtraction. Okay, so again, a short lesson since it's the first session for lesson 11. We'll go ahead and turn to page 205. And let's talk about this one. So you see that we're working with two numbers that both have values in a tenths place. So we don't have to worry too much about lining them up properly because they are basically the same values there. The mass of a female hummingbird is 4 and 5/10 grams. The mass of a male hummingbird is 3 and 2/10 grams. What's the difference? And we see the word difference. That means subtract. So any of those words kind of trigger our ideas what to do. What's the difference between the masses of the female and the male hummingbirds? Now, with word problems, a lot of it has to deal with it doesn't set up the problem for you right away. You have some freedom to kind of set it up the right way. So if you know right away it's a subtraction problem, put your larger value on top, which in this case is 4 and 5/10 grams, and then put your smaller one right below, 3 and 2/10 grams. And let's subtract our tenths. Gives us 3. I brought down my decimal point. Most of you have been doing great with that, so I'll just remember to keep doing that even with subtraction. 4 minus 3 is 1. And that gives us a final answer of 1.3 grams. That's the difference between them. So far, so good. Let's turn the page and answer a couple questions here. Explain how you can find the difference between the masses of the female and the male hummingbirds. Well, we'll just describe what we just did. Line them up by place value. Then subtract tenths and ones. Those are the two place values we dealt with, the tenths place and the ones place. And if you're watching this on a video, you can pause to write things down and then just hit play again once you're ready. For this next one, it says you can subtract decimals in different ways, just like you could add them in different ways, and the similar methods can be used here. For A, write the problem in a place value chart. So let's do that. Our first value goes up top, so that's 298. Okay, so we've got our hundreds place 8 minus 6 is 2. 9 minus 5 is 4. And 2 minus 2 is 0. You can keep the 0 there in the ones place if you'd like. That's up to you. But that's not necessary because it doesn't hold any value, and there's no digit over here. So if there's nothing over here, then this doesn't really need to be there at all. But it can be. A lot of mathematicians and people will use it. You could also find the difference using a number line and adding on strategy. Again, it's useful, just I find it to be impractical. That's why I'm not going to go too much into this and to explain it. All right, so basically what this number line thing does, it has all these different jumps, and all these jumps would come up to 42 hundredths. All right, last question. Again, this is a short one. How is subtracting decimals like subtracting whole numbers? Just like we described in question 1, line up. Excuse me, let me write this. You must line up your numbers by place values. Your numbers by place value. And that's the basic general thing that is the same for both of them. Okay. So for this one, we've got another worksheet. We do have IXL available for for your house point. That will be H3, subtract decimal numbers to 100%. But the actual worksheet is we're going to start with tenths. Tomorrow will be tenths and hundreds, and then on Monday we'll have tenths, hundreds, and thousands, or we may go with just a mix of both, depending on what where I see where our progress going. All right, let me know if you have any questions.